Okay, next news story. This week in the UK, NVIDIA held a press event where we got to see basically the gamut of demos that were showed at GDC a while back. And one demonstration caught my eye. I mean, obviously, there's some great stuff like the Covert Protocol AI demo that John detailed in a previous DF Direct Weekly. But the demo that caught my eye was actually GeForce Now, the 4080 tier. It's actually been there for a while, but it now has VRR support. So just to give you an outline of why the GeForce Now 4080 tier in particular is so awesome is because, well, basically you get a level of GPU horsepower which is way beyond the consoles. It has DLSS 3, it has reconstruction, has that advanced RT hardware, it has that raw performance. And the streaming is of excellent quality, AV1 codec if it's supported on your client, and 4K 120 with HDR. I mean, what more could you possibly want? I'll tell you what you could possibly want, VRR support, because prior to that, presentation basically looks like VSync on all the time, and that came with micro stutter. So they gave a demonstration at the event where it was basically G-Sync on versus G-Sync on, off rather, and it was just literally panning left and right in Cyberpunk, and you could see the micro stutter that you'd associate with VSync on the G-Sync off version. G-Sync on looked rather smooth, so I thought I'd give it a go at home on my own setup, which is LG CX 48-inch HDR VRR active, connected up via PC there, and I did some off-screen footage. I'm not going to say it's as good as at home on the desktop in terms of fluidity, but a lot of the the VSync judder effect is gone. It's much, much smoother. And if you look at the footage here, I was actually quite impressed by how well it came out overall, bearing in mind it is literally pointing a camera at a screen. But first of all, the little sort of diagnosis table on the top right there, the status, you bring that up with Control-N within the client. There's a couple of versions of it, a sort of verbose version, which you're seeing here, and a non-verbose option, which is just the top bit. The interesting thing here is that usually the stream FPS and the game FPS are different. The stream FPS will be 60 or 120, depending on, what you've set the stream to. But with VRR, the stream FPS is basically a match for the game FPS, which is kind of what you would expect from VRR. And it works. It works pretty well. As I said, there is still some minor sort of hitching and splutters here and there. It's not just like normal VRR. It's not going to, solve things like actual in-game stutter, checkpoint stutter, that sort of thing. But it looks really good. I'm really impressed. This is kind of like, how much better can GeForce Now get? Latency, it's playable with mouse and keyboard, certainly. You certainly notice it there, but owing to the latency sponge that is the joypad, play it with the joypad, and it really does feel like a local experience. And now we've got VRR. This is like the icing on the cake. So I don't know if you guys have got any reactions, but it's basically almost the finished article now.
Yeah, this is kind of like the last step. Last time when we talked to them at Gamescom, we did the local test that we've talked about before of can you tell the local versus the non-local that we did. But during that, we mentioned VRR to them and they said, oh, we're doing it. They didn't say anything afterwards. They just said, we're doing it. And I was like, okay, well, what are you doing for it? I'm just so curious about how they're doing it, because I want this technology for our videos. I would like to be able to present VRR in a VRR format. Because right now, pointing a camera at the screen, which Oliver does a lot, probably is annoying. I would just like to be able to record it. We need recording devices for VRR, and we also need a way to present VRR. Yeah, play it back.
Yep. Oliver, any extra feedback?
Yeah, I think this is just a really great step to make cloud gaming better. Because if G-Sync is working properly, I don't know, it could become really hard to distinguish this from local play, like you said, Rich. You get to this level where image quality is solved, performance stutters, micro stutters, that's basically solved. On a joypad in particular, this could be a really, really, really top class experience. And when I tried GeForce Now a few months ago, that was like the biggest giveaway to me, was those little stutters, that it was not a native PC experience. NVIDIA is just so far ahead of everyone else that it's sort of like comical, where NVIDIA is a company that does not seem to have an enormous emphasis on game streaming, but they just kind of do it incidentally. Whereas like Sony is pitching it as a big part of their efforts, certainly Microsoft is, and their game streaming is just much, much worse, than what NVIDIA is.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the one criticism you could raise, I mean, the thing about that footage is, well, you get an exhaustive array of data to look at there, and you can see that bandwidth is kind of like in the 40 to 50 megabits per second range, which I'd say for, 4K up to 120 frames per second, even with AV1, that's kind of, it sounds ridiculous to say it, but low bandwidth. I mean, it looks good, but it is still noticeably a streamed image. And the other thing that sort of looks a bit strange to me is that the VRR, the HDR side of things, it did look a little bit washed out. I mean, you were definitely getting HDR, but where I expected to see blacks, I wasn't seeing blacks, and it's kind of borne out by the status panel there, which is black. To all intents and purposes. So
this is Cyberpunk. So one thing I thought about with Cyberpunk is I know, according to people who test VRR and HDR. Why are we saying this? HDR and Cyberpunk so often.
It's too many R's.
Is that I think the initial HDR implementation, I'm not sure as of 2.0.
Right.
I haven't followed up since then. But it did have a slightly raised black floor.
Okay, that might explain.
So it could be that. But the one thing I've always actually wondered is, how is HDR metadata compressed for stream? Like, is it just the same macro block size as the real color compression, or is it because if you think about it, like those, is it like a perfect matchup to the like compression, or is it actually like subpixel? I have no idea how it works.
I don't have any idea how it works either.
Yeah, but it seems like it's like another layer to making that, like, it's like certain values, and it's like it's got to make, like, it's much more bandwidth intensive, I'd imagine, as a result. So that's another aspect to put apart there.
All I can really say is that GeForce Now 4080 was the best streaming system. The only one we can really recommend, to the point where even John Lineman said that he was impressed and could use it. And bearing in mind that he just doesn't abide streaming in any form, apart from VR, oddly enough. That was a recommendation enough. But the point is, now it's even better. And it's, there's been no price adjustments or anything. It's still as it is. So, it's just the best just got better. And I really could see this being a way to actually replace a home experience. Difference being there's still that curation on the games that you're quote unquote allowed to play. Do check it out. I think they're doing day passes now, so you can actually experience what the 4080 actually does without committing to a subscription or anything. But just super, super impressive. That's all I've really got to say about that. I mean, there were a bunch of other demos there, but it was mostly stuff we'd seen before, like ray reconstruction. They did a big thing on DLSS. There was the AI demo. There was also an AI tools showcase like Chat RTX. They were showing that as well.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the stuff like the production tools, like the Topaz AI tools. Some of them have got Tensor support now, some of the models there, so they're actually quite accelerated. They had a Mac versus laptop 4090 head to head, and it was just like an order of magnitude faster.
That's cool that they even dared to do that.
The Stable Diffusion demo that one was, so there was lots.
I guess that
to
makes
see there.
sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.